Much as always. Now let's get to the pressing question of the night. If the talks have broken down, is the U.S. going to default before Greece? I know it's far-fetched, but I got to ask it. Here now we have California House Democrat Brad Sherman and Washington Republican Cathy McMorris Rodgers. She is the vice chair of the House Republican Conference. Brad Sherman, let me begin with you. Are you optimistic or pessimistic? I mean, this default stuff is extremely serious. How do you see it, Brad?
I think that we're doing damage to our economy now, and I'm pessimistic about reaching a deal in July that would prevent us from doing more damage to our economy. I'm more than a little optimistic about reaching a deal in early August in order to avoid a catastrophic harm to the economy. I think Congress has a habit of pushing off decisions even when we're doing harm by pushing them off, but not pushing them off into the future to the point where they become catastrophic.
Well, Ms. Rodgers, you're in the leadership, and I want to ask you if you can tell us when will Mr. Cantor and when will Mr. Kyle, Senator Kyle, House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, when will they return to the talks, or are the talks over, Cathy?
We've made it very clear from the very beginning, the Republicans made it very clear that raising taxes was a non-starter. You know, you started the segment by asking the question, are we going to default? I think it's sad that we're even having to ask that question. America has been borrowing too much. We've been spending too much. We've been printing money at a record pace. We cannot continue down that path. Raising taxes is what Congresses have done for too many times. Too many times they've been raising taxes. And for many on the Democrat side, that's the only solution that they think of. We have to change course.
Sorry, Cathy, let me just ask you, if I may. The issue of rolling back tax deductions, so-called tax expenditures, I call them, you know, K Street breaks. Where does that sit? Is that what this debate is about, or are we talking about raising marginal tax rates?
The debate is about raising marginal tax rates. It is about increasing taxes. There's room for some of those other discussions, I believe, at the table. We believe that, for the most part, if we're going to talk about tax reform, though, that needs to be a separate discussion. The question before Congress right now is whether or not to raise the debt limit to $2.25 trillion. And we need to change. We got to change course. We got to cut. We got to stop spending. We need to actually reduce spending in order to get our fiscal house in order.
Brad Sherman, I'm sure you saw it, but the CBO's new longer-term estimates, their so-called realistic scenario, puts the debt-to-GDP ratio at 100% in 2021. And when you go further out, Brad, what you find is the biggest spending problem we have in this country is Medicare. Now, I want to ask you, if some deductions were abolished in this package, would you accept Medicare cuts?
I think everything needs to be on the table. I think that we could see some reforms in Medicare, just as we did in the health care bill. But when you say no revenue increases can be on the table, no K Street tax break can be touched, then not only can't you get to a balanced budget mathematically, but you can't get there politically, because you can't turn to Democrats and say, all of this problem has to be balanced on the backs of working families. When you have these ridiculous breaks for oil companies on ethanol and percentage depletion and intangible drilling cost deductions, et cetera, and you want to keep those,
yeah, I get
and then you want to take away Medicare benefits.
But the Congresswoman just said, Cathy, please come in. You just said that you would take a look at getting rid of some deductions. Did I hear you right?
Yes.
So, Brad, you're running up against the straw horse here.
I hope I heard Cathy right, because she said those things could be looked at, but then she said, but they have to be looked at separately from these negotiations that have to be concluded, hopefully by August 2nd.
All right, last one.
They need to be part of these discussions.
Last one to Ms. Rodgers.
There needs to be a course correction. We cannot continue down the same path of borrowing, spending, printing money at a record level. We need spending reductions, and we need to just change the way Congress spends money. That is what the new majority is about in the House of Representatives.
All right, many thanks to both of you. House members Brad Sherman and Cathy McMorris Rodgers. I appreciate it very much. Coming up.